It's 1933 in the Bronx. The Great Depression has left millions unemployed, homeless, and desperate. And in a small speakeasy on 3rd Avenue, a group of men is about to plan one of the strangest murder plots in American history. Their target, a regular customer, an Irish immigrant, a man named Michael Malloy. The men believed that killing him would be simple. Get him drunk, let him drink himself to death, and then collect on life insurance policies worth thousands of dollars in today's money. What could go wrong? Let's kill an Irish guy with alcohol. Yeah, seems simple. It's like killing a fish with water. But let's take a look, because what unfolded over the next several weeks would defy belief. No matter how many times they tried, no matter how much poison, cold, or violence they threw at him, Malloy just kept surviving. Newspapers would dub him Mike the Durable, while others called him the Irish Rasputin. His survival turned him into a bizarre folk legend, and his death would change how people thought about insurance fraud, forensic science, and human cruelty. This is the unbelievable story of the man who wouldn't die. To understand why Malloy was targeted, we have to step back into the Bronx of the early 1930s. America was still under prohibition, which meant that alcohol was illegal. But let's be honest, that was never stopping anyone. Bars disguised as lunch counters or candy stores popped up everywhere, serving booze behind closed doors. One of these speakeasies belonged to a man named Tony Marino. Tony Marino! Marino was in his late 20s, short-tempered, and heavily, emphasis on heavily, in debt. Hanging around the bar were several men who would become his co-conspirators. Francis Pasqua was an undertaker who knew how to get death certificates signed and bodies buried quickly. Joseph Red Murphy, former firefighter turned bartender who had fallen on hard times. Red, fire truck, duh. Daniel Kreisberg was a local grocer, and later they got a taxi driver named Hershey Green who'd become the Muscle. Together, these men would later be known in the press as the Murder Trust. Now, who was Michael Malloy? Well, Malloy had been born in County Donegal, Ireland, sometime in the late 1870s. And like many immigrants, he came to America searching for opportunity. But by the 1930s, his life had unraveled. He was in his 50s or 60s, he was unemployed, homeless, and drinking much of the time. To Marino and his friends, Malloy seemed like the perfect victim. He had no close family, no money, no one who would miss him, and most importantly, he had a powerful thirst. You can just picture these guys drinking every day, talking about their sad lives, and they see this guy, he's a loner in the corner. They're like, that's him. That's our guy. So the plan was straightforward. Pasqua and Kreisberg arranged for several life insurance policies under the name Nicholas Mallory, with themselves as the beneficiaries. If Malloy were to die in an accident, they stood to collect roughly $3,500. Might not sound like much today, but in the Depression, it was the equivalent of tens of thousands of dollars, enough to get these guys out of their depression. To pull it off, they needed a death that would look natural or at least plausible. And then they had the perfect environment to make it happen, Marino's Speakeasy, where Malloy spent nearly every night. So Marino made him an offer. Mike, you're as good here. Drinks are on the house as much as you want. And Malloy couldn't believe his luck. Free booze all night, every night. For a man like him, it was paradise. And that is when the killing began. You know, just an aside, as I read this story to you, I can't help but think of Frank Gallagher from the show Shameless. Really good, played by William H. Macy. If this guy reminds you of Frank, let me know in the comments, W. Frank. So the conspirators started with the obvious method. They simply let Mallory drink himself to death. They poured glass after glass, night after night. But Malloy kept going. He drank more than seemed humanly possible, staggered off into the night, only to return the next day, smiling, asking for another. And so they escalated to wood alcohol. Instead of regular booze, they gave him wood alcohol, which is methanol, and just a few ounces can cause blindness, organ failure, or death. They gave it to Malloy shot after shot after shot. He downed it like whiskey, and he lived. When alcohol didn't work, they tried food. Malloy was fed oysters, also soaked in wood alcohol. He ate them all. He was given sardine sandwiches layered with carpet tacks and spoiled fish. He ate those too. They even added rat poison, and Malloy licked his fingers like he's eating a bucket of KFC. Every time they expected him to collapse, he came back the next day, smiling and ready for more. Next, they tried freezing him to death. One bitterly cold night, they dragged Malloy into the street, stripped off his shirt, doused him in water, and left him beneath an open hydrant. The next morning, when the bar door opened, there was Malloy, shivering, coughing, but alive. Now, at this point, these guys were getting frustrated. So they hired a taxi driver. His name was Hershey Green. And one night, they dragged a drunk Malloy out into the street, laid him in front of Green's cab, and Green ran him over. The impact, it broke bones and left Malloy in the hospital, and for weeks they didn't see him. They assumed that they were finally rid of him. And then one night, the door to Marino's bar swung open, and in walked Michael Malloy, limping, bandaged, but grinning ear to ear as he slapped the bar and asked, "Can I get a drink?" So by now, the conspirators were spending more money trying to kill Malloy than they could hope to collect. But it's that whole sunken cost, gambler's fallacy thing. They were too deep at this point to quit. On February 22nd, 1933, they made their last attempt. That night, after Malloy passed out, the men carried him upstairs to Murphy's boarding room, shoved a rubber hose into his mouth, connected it with a gas line, and turned on the valve. Carbon monoxide filled his lungs, and within an hour, Michael Malloy was dead. A friendly doctor signed his death certificate as lobar pneumonia. Malloy was quickly buried, and the murder trust prepared to collect their payout. But here's where things unraveled. By this point, rumors about Mike the Durable had spread through the Bronx. Stories of the man who couldn't be killed were already circulating in other bars. And when word spread that Malloy had suddenly died, police now became suspicious. His body was exhumed, which means they dug it up. Tests revealed carbon monoxide in his tissues, proving that he had been murdered. The conspirators were arrested, and newspapers had a field day, dubbing them the Murder Trust. In 1934, Marino, Pasqua, Kreisberg, and Murphy were tried and convicted of murder. All four were executed in the electric chair at Sing Sing Prison. Hershey Green, the cab driver, received a prison sentence as well. The doctor who signed the false death certificate was convicted of falsifying records. Justice was finally served. The story of Michael Malloy has lived on for nearly a century. And while it's often told with a dark sense of humor, the man who wouldn't die, the truth is much more sobering. Malloy was not indestructible. He was vulnerable, and he was alone. He was exploited by men who decided that his life was worth more dead than alive. The press turned him into a legend, but behind the headlines was a man whose only crime was trusting the wrong people and loving his drink too much. His case also highlighted real problems of the era. How easily life insurance could be abused, how corrupt doctors could sign off on false deaths, and how badly the poor were left unprotected. Has much changed? Today, Malloy's grave lies in New York, largely forgotten. His story still circulates on podcasts, in books, and videos like this. Because as unbelievable as it sounds, it really happened, and it forces us to ask, what does it say about society when a man has to survive poison, freezing, and even being run over by a car before someone finally notices that his life had value? Michael Malloy's killers thought no one would care. They were wrong. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Matt, and this is Strange Ordinary. It's a new channel, so any likes, comments, subscriptions, doesn't cost you anything, but it does mean a lot to me. We upload 2 videos every single week, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one.